What's up, guys? Let's go and take a look at what I think is the best wildcard Game Week 30 team. Now, before I get into it, just remember, there's some double Game Week 34 fixtures that haven't been announced yet that will be announced before the deadline, but I'm going to assume they're not going to affect my wildcard 30 team too much because, first of all, you have many free transfers until you get to double Game Week 34. On top of that, I've looked at the likely double game weeks, yeah? And the only teams with good double game weeks is Arsenal, Liverpool, and Crystal Palace. We've got plenty of Arsenal and Liverpool in the team already, and you can just bring the Crystal Palace players in when it's time. So yeah, let's get straight into it. In the goalkeeper positions, we have Kelleher, because he's great for saving money. He's one of the cheapest keepers on the game. On top of that, while Alisson is out injured, he has some of the highest clean sheet potential I've seen in a long while. Great fixture run, playing for a great team. Very cheap. It just seems like you have to do it. I mean, it's a great option. And when Alisson comes back and you can't use Kelleher anymore, you've got Flecken on the bench. The reason I picked Flecken as the second goalkeeper is because his fixture run towards the end of the year, when Alisson comes back to replace Kelleher, is great. So that means as soon as Kelleher's in the mud, doesn't matter too much. Don't need to make a transfer. Just start playing Flecken instead of Kelleher. It's a foolproof scenario with the goalkeepers, which sets you up for the rest of the FPL season. So I would recommend strongly going with these two goalkeepers. Now, looking at the back three we have in this 3-4-3 formation, we've got Bradley doubling up on that cheap Liverpool defence. He's a very good player, good clean sheet potential, even high assist potential. You see sometimes he plays right wing in Salah's absence, which is very nice. He's only 4.1 million as well. So when he becomes redundant and Trent comes back into the team, it doesn't matter too much because he didn't cost anything anyway. So just seems like a very simple choice to make. Now, with Fulham having a pretty great fixture run coming up from now until the end of the year, I've decided I want to get a Fulham defender in this wildcard team. And let's be honest, Robinson is far better than any other Fulham defender with his assist potential. Even though he doesn't get the highest expected assists, he can just put one great cross in and it's going to get Muniz on the end of it. It's going to be a nice goal. So I see him getting quite a few returns with clean sheets and assists from now until game week 38. For me, he's a season-long hold. Obviously, season being the next 9 game weeks, but still it's quite a while. I think he's a great player for anyone's wildcard team. Then finishing off the back three, we've got Gusto from Chelsea. Basically, like Robinson, great assist potential, great fixture run. In a decent defensive team, Chelsea, they're not the best at attacking, but they know how to defend quite well. And what's even better, he only costs 4.3 mil. I would consider getting this guy if he was worth 5.3 mil. So he's definitely someone you want to consider. Even if he does become redundant like Bradley, he's cheap enough to just be on your bench anyway. So guys, please consider Gusto in your wildcard teams if you are going to wildcard. Maybe even consider just transferring him in because he's a great option to have from now until the end of the season. And the last two defenders sitting on the bench for this game week is the double Arsenal defence with Gabriel and Saliba. You could choose Ben White. Ben White has the highest chance of a goal contribution, but he also has the highest chance of being rotated and missing out on a clean sheet. That's why I've chosen Gabriel and Saliba. Arsenal by far have the best defence in the league this year. After they face Man City away, you could probably play Saliba and Gabriel for every remaining fixture of the season, and they can rotate very well with Robinson and Gusto. So I feel like that defence there, providing you don't get injuries, providing some bad form doesn't come across, you could use that defence and rotate them for pretty much the rest of the year. Obviously, you might not because there's going to be double game weeks and blank game weeks. But the point is, it sets you up very nicely, a very well-balanced defence. Next up, we have Mohamed Salah. Do I need to explain why I'm choosing Mohamed Salah? No, I do not. Following Salah in the midfield is Son, who has a few easy games coming up. But to be honest, I think he's more of a short-term option because when Son starts facing Newcastle and all these other hard teams, you could just switch in Foden for a similar price, who has a much better fixture run. And to be honest, better underlying data, more expected goals, more expected assists and so on. So it would make sense to have Son to begin with. Then if he doesn't get a double game week by the time they face Newcastle, switch him out for Foden. That'd be a good little play for the wild card. There is obviously that option of keeping Son the whole way through because we know how good he is. But me personally, if I was going to wild card with Son, I'd probably transfer him out for Foden later on in the season. Next up in midfield, we have Anthony Gordon. This is because Newcastle have an amazing fixture run. And we know what Anthony Gordon can do in home games as well. It's like he gets a goal contribution almost every single time. He's kind of like Palmer in the sense it's just a very cheap gem, someone who costs almost as much as a bench player that can pretty much play in your starting 11 week in, week out. He's got West Ham at home in game week 30, followed by another home game after that. And you can also rotate him with plays on the bench. We'll get onto the bench later on. Point is, Anthony Gordon is a season-long hold. Great fixtures. Easy to rotate with other players in the midfield. Very good choice. And finishing off the midfield four, who would have guessed it? We have Cole Palmer. He's playing Burnley at home. I actually might end up going without Palmer in game week 30 because I'm not using my wildcard yet, which is quite scary. I definitely want him in though. Palmer, like I said earlier, cheap gem. He can play as well as someone who costs like 9 or 10 mil. You've got to have him in your team. It's a bit of a no-brainer, especially with the decent games coming up. And guys, the fifth midfielder on the bench is Saka. Do not worry, I have not left him out. You could argue you want to play Saka over Gordon, especially once we find out more about Gordon's injury, whether it's very serious or not. If Gordon is going to start next game week, then I'll definitely choose Gordon over Saka. But we have Saka there as a backup option. And let's be honest, Saka is one of those players that could score literally against anyone. So it's kind of scary to put him on the bench. But then you have to remember, playing away to Man City, two quite defensive teams if we're being honest. They both like just controlling possession and passing it around. I think it'd be a low-scoring game. So I wouldn't bet on Saka over Gordon for game week 30. But if you're doing this wildcard team, you definitely could. Which just leaves us with our front three. First of all, we have Haaland in the team for very obvious reasons. Then we have Watkins in the team for very obvious reasons. Now, Watkins does have quite a few hard games coming up. So coming up to double game week 34, you could argue it's worth selling him for Nunes, who might double, Isak, who might double. So definitely get him in the wildcard team, but be prepared to maybe switch him down to a double game week player later on. It could be a good shout. You never know. Then finally, we have another cheap gem. Someone who's cheap as a bench player but can play like a starting player. It is Muniz from Fulham, who's just out of nowhere come in and started banging in goals left, right, centre. Mainly from crosses and corners. He's got a lethal header on him. And with cheap budget left, I think we only had like 0.2 million spare in the end. He is a great player to put in there because once again, you can rotate him with other attackers. So you have that whole attack which can rotate between each other when there's bad fixtures. And you have it with the entire defence as well. So overall, it's a very balanced wild card filled with some cheap gems which can help you rotate through the bad fixtures, which is very nice. If I was on wildcard, this is 100% the team I'd be looking to get at the moment. If I change my mind, it would only be on a few little details. But this is the main bulk of the team. Well balanced. Can set you up for the rest of the year with minimal transfers, to be honest. That's why I like it so much. Obviously, injuries happen. Double game weeks happen. Blank game weeks happen. So you might change the team here and there. Now, just off the top of my head, I think this team costs 104.9 million, which is a little expensive. And there are some cheaper alternatives to go with. For example, if you like have double Arsenal defense, you could sell Saliba for a cheap 4.5 defender with easy games, like Murillo from Nottingham Forest. It's risky, but you could leave Son out of your team and go with Foden to save about 2 mil if you're low on budget. Or if you just needed to save like a very small amount of money in FPL for this wildcard team, you could just get rid of Flecken and go with Areola instead, or another cheap starting goalkeeper. But yeah, guys, on the whole, this is my wildcard 30 team if I was going to wildcard. Triple Arsenal and double Liverpool in case those double game weeks come around. Very well balanced. You can do rotation everywhere through the bad fixtures. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what you disagree with. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.